Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are going to be talking about food intolerances today with Dr. Udani. We realize there could be lots of questions, and Dr. Udani has made herself available. You can feel free to text her at 437-702-2112. I wanted to take a moment and introduce you to Dr. Udani. She's our naturopathic doctor here at Justine Blaney Wellness Center. And she really is very passionate about women's health and digestive. She'll talk about poop, no problem, pain and stress, and all about skin conditions as well. And she has a philosophy that she goes with, which is she genuinely believes that everyone has the ability to make healthy and long-lasting changes. Please help me welcome Dr. Udani.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Angela. So welcome to this talk. It's going to be an exciting talk about food intolerances, and I'm going to focus specifically on celiac disease. So we're going to talk about what it is and what are the main causes and how you can deal with it as well. So here are some upcoming webinars that we have. We are going to be, myself and Dr. Justine, we're going to talk about the winter defense, healthier for the winter season. It's going to be a jam-packed session, so please tune in. We're also going to be doing avoiding the bittersweet side of sugar. So that's going to be very, very informative from Dr. Justine. We're also having a food drive day where if you bring a non-perishable item, you can receive $5 off your adjustment. So that is a great way to get adjusted and also help support the community too. We're also going to have a conversation, a lecture on how to reduce your inflammation naturally by Dr. Justine, and then a healthy holiday workshop she's going to be doing as well. So lots of exciting things coming up. So today we're going to talk about celiac disease. This is quite a common condition in most people, especially if you have some kind of intolerance or sensitivity to gluten. So we're going to talk about what is gluten, what is that, and everything about celiac disease today. So what is celiac disease? So this can be, you can get it as a child or you can develop this as an adult as well. So celiac disease is a digestive disorder or a condition. And what happens is your small intestine gets damaged by the immune system and the immune system is triggered by when you eat food that is rich in gluten. Okay, so this is gluten-containing foods are predominantly things like bread, things like pasta. A lot of the grains have gluten. So if someone has a celiac disease, what happens is when they eat gluten, the immune system gets triggered and starts to attack the intestines itself. So it's not a very pretty picture. So some classic symptoms in adults is, this can be ranging from very mild to really severe. And the classic symptoms is that you get like diarrhea because the food is not digested. And so it just passes through. You might feel really tired because you're not absorbing the nutrients. So a lot of nutrient deficiencies can show up, especially iron deficiency can show up with celiac disease. You get weight loss because you're not, digesting it and absorbing the food. A lot of bloating and gas, a lot of abdominal pain, nausea and vomiting. Constipation can come from it too. And then you can also get systemic conditions like headaches and joint pain, and other food intolerances can develop from having celiac disease as well. The symptoms in kids can be a little bit hard to figure out because kids can't really talk to us about what's going on, right? And so they are actually a little bit more likely to have celiac than adults, just because celiac has a genetic predisposition too. So some common symptoms for children is things like nausea and vomiting. So especially if you're noticing that your kid, they eat a lot of pasta or a sandwich and they complain of feeling nauseous, or they complain of feeling bloated, getting a swollen belly, chronic diarrhea. Another classic symptom is you get that pale, foul smelling stools because you're not absorbing the nutrients. So these are some of the symptoms in kids for celiac disease. So what exactly happens with celiac disease and how does it damage everything? So what happens is, the gluten is a protein. Okay, so that's found in a lot of the grains. So a lot of, for example, wheat, barley, and a lot of the common grains that make up the foods that we eat. And when the body absorbs the broken down carbohydrates and the gluten in it, it triggers the immune system to have this inflammatory reaction against it. And think of gluten. Gluten is what makes dough stretch. Okay, it's what gives structure to bread, what gives structure to any kind of baked good. So that protein is what the immune system is attacking against. And over time, what it does is that this immune reaction really starts to attack the intestine itself, and this can take some time for it to happen, but over time the intestines get really damaged to the point that you can't even absorb the essential things you need to to function and in a healthy way. So what is gluten and why is it bad for you? So as I mentioned before, gluten can come from basically most of the grains, okay? So anything that's made from the grains will contain gluten. So things like pasta, things like pizza, spaghetti, bread, and even unsuspecting things like fries can have some gluten mixed into it. Of course, beer. Beer is made from wheat, so or barley or things like that, the grains, and so the beer will have gluten in it as well. So some of the symptoms of gluten sensitivity is things like you get that indigestion. You get the bloating, the cramping, the diarrhea. You might even feel a little brain fog. So, for example, I have a very good friend. She has celiac, and so or she has a very strong gluten sensitivity. So I'll explain the difference between the gluten sensitivity and a celiac as well. But for her, whenever she eats like a pizza, for example, or pasta, like she feels very tired, and she almost feels like she can't focus, like so it's that strong, and it's very immediate, like she'll get it like as soon as she eats it. So this can go all through your body as well. So how can we cut this back? What can we do with, if you're noticing it, or if you're thinking, maybe I have some kind of gluten sensitivity? You want to start off by eliminating it for a bit to see if the symptoms reduce. So I usually say 2 to 3 weeks, cut everything, all the things containing gluten down, and notice if you notice a change. And you got to make sure you check ingredient labels to make sure that you're not having hidden gluten in your food as well. And you can make your own gluten-free healthy foods at home, and there are so many labels right now these days that carry gluten-free products, like gluten-free pastas, gluten-free pizzas, gluten-free desserts. So it is very possible to live a gluten-free lifestyle. So let's talk a little bit about the major causes of celiac disease. So it's a very complex disease with a lot of factors, and there's a genetic factor component to it. There's imbalance in the gut microbiome, and especially the likelihood increases if we eat a lot of processed foods and additives. Leaky gut, we can talk a little bit about that. Like lots of infections and pathogens can cause inflammation. Chronic stress, of course, and food tolerances can all lead to celiac disease. So let's talk a bit about genetics. So celiac disease does have a genetic component, and this is why some kids will develop celiac disease in childhood. Most of the times it does get worse as an adult. So you might have not even noticed you had celiac disease until you reach a certain age, and you realize I can't digest food like I was used to do. So there's a genetic component. There's also a vitamin D. If you're deficient in vitamin D, they found that you might be more likely to develop celiac disease as well. So there are actually tests you can do to determine if you carry this genetic code that makes you susceptible for celiac disease. Imbalance in gut microbiome is a huge factor for increasing inflammation. And when there's inflammation, your immune system goes a little crazy, okay? It goes overdrive and overactive, and it just starts to produce even more inflammation because it's trying to figure out what's going on. It's trying to kill whatever's causing this inflammation, and there's like collateral damage basically. So a lot of times imbalance in the gut microbiome comes from, you know, the good bacteria being reduced and the bad bacteria just growing more and more and setting down roots. And this causes a lot of that inflammation going on. And this is something I talk a lot and to my patients, because a lot of people I do see have a lot of digestive issues. So I love to explain what's going on in the gut for them, to explain what leaky gut is, because it can get confusing. So if you are confused about these things, send me a message or speak to me at the clinic. I'd love to explain it to you. And, of course, this inflammation is made worse when we eat processed foods and additives. So, processed foods, anything that, was not made by nature but was man-made, I personally consider it a processed food. So, things that are like smoked meats, things contain a lot of sugar, a lot of, food dyes, donuts, cakes, processed foods like, fries, artificial sweeteners, artificial dyes. And of course, gluten is so highly processed these days. A lot of the grains that we do consume, it's GMO, or there's a lot of pesticides that are used in it. There's just too much processing, so that will cause them to become inflammatory as well. So things like white breads, white pasta, these are very, very, very basically almost all the nutrient has been taken away because of how processed it has been. So all of these add to the inflammation, and especially even conventionally raised meats as is really big with adding inflammation into our diet as well. So always making sure that you're eliminating or reducing as much of the processed foods as possible is a big, big thing. So a really, really simple thing you could do is go into your pantry, right? Like, these days, because the holidays are coming up, and see what are some things that you can substitute instead of, getting the really, really highly processed sweets or snacks. Maybe there's a healthy alternative that you can do, and you can start off with small steps, small habits, and build up on them, so that way it doesn't feel too overwhelming for you. Another cause of celiac disease is intestinal permeability. So this is the leaky gut that I was talking about. So healthy gut versus leaky gut. So think about the gut like a cheesecloth, okay? So when we eat food, because the cheesecloth filters out all the nutrients and leaves the rest of it in the gut for it to be passed out as poop. But in a leaky gut, what happens is there's little breaks. Okay, there's little breaks in the cheesecloth that is allowing the bigger molecules to come through. It's allowing the harmful bacteria, harmful viruses, and parasites to come through, and your immune system is trying to fight it all. Because it's not used to it. So the immune system's thinking all of these are invaders. I must fight it. And the thing with our gut lining is that it is only one cell layer thick. Okay, one cell layer. So if you could think about your skin is 7 cell layers thick, okay? And your gut lining is one cell. So that's comparing cardboard to tissue paper. So it's very, very, very easy to be damaged and to be opened up even more. So the leaky gut gets worse with more inflammation, and you get this huge inflammatory response in the gut. And having gluten containing food just makes it even worse. So another big thing is the infections and pathogens. So these are the bad bacteria, the parasites, the fungi that I was mentioning, and they will make everything a lot worse. Okay, so the friendly bacteria, or you might have heard, we call the probiotics, right? Probiotics are considered friendly bacteria because they actually work with us instead of working against us. So they work with us to reduce the inflammation. They work with us to help digest food better. They work with us to make our immune system work better and not become, overly crazy. And, they actually are our friends. But what happens is sometimes, we might, go abroad, for example. We might go somewhere, catch food poisoning, or we went camping, had, drank some water from the lake, got food poisoning or some kind of illness. And you you continue to collect some of the bad bugs in you. And then there's this balance of the good and the bad kind of goes haywire, and you get more of the bad, unfriendly bacteria and parasites and viruses living inside you, and they start to cause the inflammation. And so this will over time lead to a lot of food intolerances, and celiac disease can develop from this inflammation as well. Chronic stress, of course, I feel like we're all are experiencing some kind of chronic stress these days. And it's something that seemingly it's like part of our lives. And this is where we got to recognize the symptoms of what chronic stress is. That way we check in with ourselves as well. We'd say, okay, I've had a stressful day, and here are the signs of that. Let me take it easy right now. Let me not make my body go through this more and more, because when you're under stress, your body can't heal. Your body is always thinking something's going to come up, something is coming up. I have to prepare myself. It's always in that fight or flight. But we need to be in the rest and digest and heal state for the body to repair itself, right? So some symptoms of chronic stress are things like teeth grinding. So for example, whenever I'm stressed, I know instantly because my jaw starts to tighten up. Like I can sometimes, like, I notice I have jaw pain, or I'm grinding my teeth because I'm stressed, and I have to talk to myself a little bit. I'm like, okay, calm down, it's gonna be okay. So that is like a marker for me. And another one is, for a lot of people, it is digestive issues. So getting the bloating, the cramping, sometimes the butterflies in their stomach can be a sign of that. For a lot of people, it's also sleep issues. So trouble with sleeping, not being able to turn off things in their mind, and minds are constantly running. So these are all signs of chronic stress, and it's just adding wear and tear in your body. So you have to make sure that you're able to identify the signs of chronic stress that your body's going through, and then that you're able to practice techniques to reduce that stress. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And so the food intolerances. So what is the difference between food sensitivity versus food allergy? So a lot of people have like gluten sensitivity, versus celiac is like a very strong, very strong immune reaction against gluten. So food sensitivities can develop at any age. So you can get it as an adult, you can get it as a child, and they tend to be more long lasting. So longer term symptoms. So you might feel, you get bloating, joint pain, irritable bowel syndrome, you feel tired, you might even get skin issues like eczema is one of a huge sign of food intolerances, food sensitivities. And but it's not deadly per se, but it does take a toll on your body. Some common things are gluten is a big food sensitivity a lot of people have. Milk is another one. So dairy, corn, eggs, and sugar are some other ones as well. Whereas food allergies is when you develop it from as a child, as a baby. These allergies are immediate. So you as soon as you touch a peanut, you eat a shellfish, for example, you get an immediate reaction. And an allergy it can be deadly. So this is why you need to have an EpiPen, or you need to make sure you seek medical attention immediately when it comes to food allergies. With gluten, it tends to be more of a food sensitivity. So it's more long lasting. You get those more whole body symptoms that are long lasting as well. So let's talk a little bit about supportive strategies. When you have celiac disease or any kind of food intolerance, you have to start from the foundations, right? We have to figure out what is going on with our diet and how can we add in more anti-inflammatory foods into the diet. Because once we increase the anti-inflammatory foods full of antioxidants, the good kind of proteins, the good kind of fats, the good kind of carbs, that calms our immune system down, that calms our digestion down too, and it really helps our body recover and heal. So a lot of the top anti-inflammatory foods are things like a lot of spices, for example, a lot of herbs. I always recommend adding as many spices and herbs into your diet as possible. So things like turmeric, cayenne, ginger, thyme, rosemary, basil. These are great. They're like super, super, super antioxidants. Okay, they're very powerful. You can even add berries as well. So, and all berries are very, very high in antioxidants. You even choosing fresh, wild caught Pacific salmon or grass fed beef or free range eggs. So, always remembering that what you ate meat matters a lot. Okay, when it comes to meat, you got to make sure that the meat that you are consuming comes from a very healthy, very natural, as much as possible place. And of course, oil. So olive oil, I even say coconut oil as well, lots of seeds, so flax seeds, hemp seeds. These are all amazing and full of anti-inflammatory things that are great for you. And if this is sounds confusing and sounds like too overwhelming, come talk to me. Come talk to our nutritionist Sabine as well, so that we can set up a plan for you. So that way you are set best, and give you some tips as well to how to develop and adapt to anti-inflammatory diet. The other supportive strategy is the autoimmune elimination diet. So this is a diet where you are really trying to eliminate the top triggers for autoimmune issues. So sometimes, before I would do a diet like this, I would maybe ask the patient to do a IgG food sensitivity testing. So this is done by naturopaths, just to see what are the foods that you specifically are sensitive to. That way, we can only need to eliminate those foods and still have the foods that you do need to eat. And this elimination doesn't have to be permanent. So this doesn't need to be lifetime. We just need it to eliminate it until your gut and your body is able to heal itself. So a lot of times, with this autoimmune eliminate, so the food elimination diet, you do tend to experience good symptoms, like your symptoms are improving, your energy is improving, your digestion improves, and it really does kind of pay off in the end, because you're realizing all these good health benefits as well. Supportive strategies for gut health. So when it comes to gut health, and all the things I mentioned before about leaky gut and the bad bacteria and the good bacteria, and the immune system, you're like, where do I start? Like, what's the first thing to do, right? Because it does sound a little overwhelming. So the first, we call it the 4 R's or Dr. Jockers. I want to respect him and honor him with this article and information as well. So the first one is you want to remove. So you want to remove all, like, the offending things. So this is the bad bacteria, the bad bugs, the foods that are triggering these reactions. And you wait a bit. You wait for the inflammation to go down, and then you start to replace these things with the good bacteria, so the probiotics and the right kind of gut healing foods. And then you also want to, now that you wait a little bit more after that, and then you reintroduce the certain foods one by one that you were having trouble with before. So now you wait and see, okay, I had some eggs, did I have a reaction? Okay, I didn't, so maybe I can continue this, keep going with this protocol now. And then you further you do is repairing the lining itself by adding in lots of things like collagen, things, other supplements, other kinds of foods that help repair the lining itself. So this is a process for sure. It can take some time, but this is where someone like me come in to support you, to guide you, to help you figure out the ABCs of how to repair your gut health, how to support you, so that way you're not experiencing IBS, or you're not experiencing this crazy food intolerances that are making you feel like not yourself anymore. So this is where I would come in to help clarify things for you as well, and to let you know that it is possible. It is definitely possible to heal and support your gut. The other thing we want to do is we want to avoid hidden sources of gluten. Okay, so like I mentioned before, gluten is mainly comes from grains, but there are hidden sources of it. So things like fries, for example, can have gluten associated with it. Even many condiments, like soy sauce, for example, has gluten in it. And cakes, and sometimes ice creams might have it too, just by association. So avoiding hidden gluten food. And so you want to look at the label for sure. The label should say either may contain gluten or gluten-free on it. So you always want to you can also see the Canadian Celiac Association logo. If it's supported by that association, it's more likely to not contain any gluten in it. Actually, it should not contain any gluten in it because that is the Canadian Association for celiac disease. So looking to avoiding the hidden gluten will help a lot with repairing the gut and supporting with celiac disease as well. And we also want to balance our gut microbiome, right? So we want to add in probiotics, add in the food that the probiotics eat, so that way they are able to support your immune system and everything in general. So, a lot of people will take probiotics. And for me, my opinion is that we have to first remove the bad bugs before we introduce the probiotics. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to stick and colonize properly. So a big thing with this is you want to add in the fermented foods. So things like fermented, sauerkraut, for example, natto beans or miso paste. And these are like great foods for our good bacteria that are already in there that can support it as well. Probiotics is a great way to support your gut health. And of course, reducing stress and improving sleep is a big one. When we want to heal our body, we want to promote a great night's sleep. And one of the best and easiest ways to do this is to shut your phone off, put it away, okay? And you want to just make sure your room is as nice and relaxing and cozy as possible. You want to avoid any stimulants, so no coffee. And usually I say no coffee before, like 6 hours before you try to go to sleep. And this is a big thing for me personally because I used to drink a lot of coffee. I used to drink like 3 cups of coffee a day, and I decided to switch to decaf. And I realized that I was fine. I didn't need the energy from the coffee. I just was missing the taste. The flavor of the coffee was what I was actually going after. So now that I drink I drink all decaf now. And I've been doing this for about 7, 8 months now. And I've noticed huge improvements in my sleep. I'm able to go to sleep, and within 5 minutes, I'm out. And I have a restful sleep. I don't wake up in the middle of the night or anything like that. So removing those stimulants can be a big factor. Another thing is, a lot of people don't actually eat enough food before we go to bed. So we do need some food in us to make us feel rested and feel relaxed in order to go to sleep. So if you're skipping meals before you go to sleep, that could be a factor why you're not able to sleep either, because the body is awake, the body's wanting food, and it's like keeping you awake there that way. So look into those if you are thinking about reducing your stress and improving your sleep. We also want to look into something called homocysteine levels. So this is actually a byproduct um, of B vitamins. There's a lot of chemical reactions happening in the body, right? So homocysteine levels have shown to be higher in patients that have more of those plaque buildup, in heart attacks and things like that. And it's considered a marker of inflammation. So we want to reduce the homocysteine levels in the body. And this is what can increase cardiovascular disease and inflammation. So a lot of times eating really healthy, so adding B vitamins into your diet, B6, B12 specifically, can help reduce the homocysteine levels, and other supplements. So if you are worried about any kind of cardiovascular issues, comes with inflammation, you can talk to myself, and we can also get these levels monitored as well. And reducing oxalates food. So oxalates is actually it can cause kidney stones, and this can accumulate in the kidneys and form into stones. And if you know anyone that's had kidney stones, or you yourself has had it, that is probably one of the worst pains that you could ever have. So reducing the high oxalate foods can go a huge way to reducing inflammation, overall inflammation, and also reducing your likelihood of kidney stones. So if you can go back to the slide, actually, I want to point out that you'll notice some of the leafy greens are in here as well. So things like rhubarb, spinach, and Swiss chards, and kale, for example. So they can be high in oxalates. But here's the thing: if you steam it, and if you really steam it well, a lot of those oxalates are flushed out in the water, so you don't end up taking it in. So that's a good point to make. In case you're wondering, if you're eating a lot of leafy greens and you're worried about oxalates, just know that if you do steam it, a lot of the oxalates are washed away, and that way you're not going to be ingesting a lot of that. And you also want to optimize your micronutrient levels. So micronutrients are like the antioxidants, the minerals, the little trace minerals that we have, things like magnesium, calcium, vitamin A, B, C, all of those little trace minerals that we need for our body to function properly. So for our chemical reactions. And a lot of times we do get this from our fruits and our vegetables, and sometimes supplementation is needed if there is a big deficiency. So we want to support our micronutrient levels, because this is what kind of gives our cells the energy and makes our cells work as well as it should be. And they all reduce inflammation. So and that's a big part of reducing any food intolerances, is reducing inflammation. So some additional testing that you could do, especially for celiac disease, you can do is there's actually a antibody test to figure out, do you have the antibodies for gluten? So it's a test to rule in or rule out celiac disease. I also recommend for food intolerances to do a IgG food testing. There's also GI map stool analysis. This is a very, very comprehensive test. This basically maps or tests your stool to see any kind of bad bacteria, bad parasites, and bad viruses and things like that, yeast as well. So there are a lot of comprehensive tests out there. If you're interested in this, speak to me. That way I could talk to you about what test might be right for you in terms of figuring out what is causing any kind of digestive concerns for you. And of course, the nervous system is very, very important with food intolerances and celiac disease and digestive system in general, because it is our main, the motor system. It fires up everything, and it has a huge part to do with stress as well. So when we are stressed, our nervous system is always on. It's always in that fight or flight, the sympathetic drive, right? And this is where seeing somebody like Dr. Justine can really help figure out if there are any subluxations that are making the nervous system more overactive than it needs to be. So I hope that was very informative for you. I think that was I covered a lot of things. And if any of those things, any of those points were confusing for you, or you wanted more information, please let us know. We'd love to do more talks on this topic. Or you can always approach me. You can contact me or approach me at the clinic as well. And these are some of our, once again, our upcoming webinars. We have Healthier for the winter season. We got the winter defense talk with myself and Dr. Justine coming up. It's going to be an amazing talk. We're also having the avoiding the bittersweet side of sugar. So that's going to be interesting, especially for holiday season, because we're going to be eating some sugar and we want to make sure we curb that sweet tooth. We're also having a food drive day coming up. We are going to be talking more about how to reduce your inflammation naturally. So a lot of the stuff I talked today was about inflammation. So how can we reduce that naturally with Dr. Justine? And we also will have a healthy holiday workshop with Dr. Justine as well. So lots of exciting things coming up. And as always, we'd love to have you connect with us and, tell us your feedback, give us ideas about talks or any other events that you would like us to do. Please feel free to connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and we would love to hear from you.
I wanted to thank you, Dr. Udani, for being here with us tonight and for sharing all of the ins and outs of our bodies, and just loved the talk. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I hope everybody has a wonderful evening ahead.
Good night, everyone.